angelic. Today we explore a notion that may at first seem poetic, but is rooted in human truth. Sigma males are in many ways the unsung angels among us. They carry within them a gentle strength, a certain clarity and compassion, often unseen. It's not about wings or miracles, but about ordinary moments lived with extraordinary intention. Imagine someone who stands firm in their values even when no one is watching. Imagine someone who offers help without ceremony, without need for praise. That is Sigma, the silent guardian, the grounded friend, the soul who walks lightly but leaves a steady warmth behind. If you're watching this and you resonate, or even if you're merely curious, this is an invitation to lean in, to observe, and perhaps to discover these qualities within yourself. Over the next few minutes, we will gently unwind 8 lesser-known truths about why Sigma males might very well be our angels in human form and how they come to realize it themselves. So let us begin softly, step by steady step. Number 1, unspoken empathy. Sigma males often sense what others suppress, and that makes their presence feel almost otherworldly. They don't rush to dominate conversations or fill silences with noise. Instead, they lean into stillness, choosing to listen more than they speak. Modern psychology has shown that active listening is one of the rarest yet most impactful forms of communication, and Sigma males practice it instinctively. Their empathy isn't loud or performative, it's subtle, patient, and deeply observant. This quiet sensitivity allows them to detect emotions in the smallest of ways, a flicker in someone's eyes, the tension of a forced smile, or the hesitation tucked into a wavering tone. While most people overlook these details, Sigma males register them as signals that reveal the emotional state beneath the surface. Empathy, as researchers explain, is the ability to recognize and respond to the emotions of others. But Sigma males refine this skill through restraint. They don't react immediately, which gives them an edge in understanding before speaking. For example, neuroscientists studying emotional intelligence note that the brain's mirror neurons fire when we perceive others' emotions, helping us feel what someone else feels. Sigma males, with their natural inclination to observe, allow these signals to sink in before responding, making their presence comforting rather than overwhelming. This is why many people find themselves opening up to them without fully realizing why. They sense a rare kind of safety in their silence. But it's important to note that this isn't weakness or passivity. Their silence is a choice, not a gap. Unlike extroverted personalities who thrive on external validation, Sigma males let their empathy work in the background, waiting for the right moment to offer words that are thoughtful, not reactive. This kind of empathy doesn't seek applause, it seeks connection. It is the kind of understanding that builds trust quietly, one glance or one pause at a time. In a world full of noise, their ability to listen deeply and respond with patience makes them stand out, not as showy heroes, but as steady anchors. Their empathy doesn't announce itself. It simply waits until it's truly needed. Number 2, steadfast integrity. A Sigma male stands by his principles not as a performance or to impress others, but because they genuinely matter to him. This quiet yet resolute moral compass is what sets him apart. Even when no one is watching, even when the choice costs him comfort, popularity, or opportunities, he remains true to his values. In a world where social approval often dictates decisions, this type of integrity is rare. It mirrors the concept of what psychologists call doing something because it aligns with your internal standards, rather than seeking external rewards. For the Sigma, the approval of his own conscience is enough. What makes this fascinating is how such conviction shapes behavior. History and psychology alike show us that individuals with strong personal principles tend to display higher resilience. They recover faster from setbacks because their sense of worth doesn't come from fleeting applause. Think of figures like Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic philosopher who emphasized living in accordance with one's principles regardless of external pressures. The Sigma embodies this same spirit, an angelic steadiness that transcends trends, opinions, and fleeting desires. While others bend under the weight of expectations, he remains unshaken, quietly influencing without needing to broadcast his stance. This doesn't mean the Sigma male is rigid or unyielding. Rather, his principles act as a compass that guides him through complex situations, helping him navigate without losing himself. Modern psychology confirms that having a clear moral framework reduces stress and decision fatigue since choices are filtered through a consistent set of values. To outsiders, this may look almost saintly, like a quiet angel walking among them, unbothered by the noise of the world. He may not seek recognition, but his authenticity is magnetic. People sense his depth, even if they cannot always explain why. That is the paradox of the Sigma male. He moves unseen, yet leaves a lasting impression, not because he demands attention, but because his integrity radiates in silence. Number 3, service without spotlight. Helping others for Sigma males rarely comes with a spotlight. Unlike personalities who thrive on recognition or validation, the Sigma male's approach to service is quiet, intentional, and deeply personal. It isn't about applause, nor is it about climbing some invisible social ladder. It's rooted in a philosophy of doing what's right simply because it aligns with their inner code of integrity. For them, the true reward lies not in being seen, but in knowing that they've contributed something meaningful, however small, to someone else's journey. Psychologists who study altruism often distinguish between where assistance is offered for personal gain and where the act is performed without expectation of return. Sigma males embody the latter. A late-night message sent to check on a struggling friend, a quiet financial gesture to ease someone's burden, or simply listening without judgment. These are the hallmarks of their helping nature. And the fascinating part is that such acts often go unnoticed by the wider world, but they ripple deeply in the lives of the individuals touched by them. Research in social psychology has shown that even small acts of kindness can significantly reduce stress, increase feelings of connectedness, and foster resilience. Sigma males intuitively practice this, becoming quiet anchors in the chaos of other people's lives. Their way of helping also reflects their preference for independence and solitude. Unlike extroverts who may rally a crowd for a charitable cause, Sigmas tend to operate one-on-one in personal, understated ways. This discreet approach is not only a reflection of their introverted strength, but also a form of humility. They don't need an audience. Historical examples remind us of similar figures, thinkers like Marcus Aurelius, who emphasized silent virtue, or unsung heroes whose acts of service only came to light years later. In a world obsessed with visibility and recognition, Sigma males stand apart. They serve unseen, not to be remembered, but because in their eyes it is the quietest gestures that often carry the greatest weight. Number 4, composure in life's storms. When chaos erupts, the unexpected, the painful, the overwhelming, it is often Sigma men who stand calm. This composure is not born from indifference, but from a cultivated practice of inner stillness. While others panic, a Sigma male leans into a quiet strength that has been built over years of solitude, reflection, and self-reliance. In psychology, this is closely related to emotional regulation, the ability to manage one's internal state despite external turmoil. Research in neuroscience shows that people who regularly practice self-reflection and mindfulness are better equipped to stay grounded during crises, as the brain's prefrontal cortex, responsible for reasoning and decision-making, stays more active, while the amygdala, the fear center, is less reactive. This explains why Sigma males who thrive in introspection and prefer minimal external noise often exude a sense of stability when everything else feels unstable. What makes their calm so striking is that it becomes a silent refuge for others. In history and literature, we find countless examples of individuals whose quiet resilience inspired entire groups. Consider Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor who faced wars and plagues yet wrote meditations on maintaining inner peace. Or think of Ernest Shackleton, whose steady composure during his Antarctic expedition kept his crew alive against impossible odds. These men reflect the very quality Sigma males embody: strength, not through dominance, but through presence. In a modern sense, this mirrors the role of emotional anchors in times of crisis. Studies in social psychology show that groups under pressure naturally gravitate toward those who appear calm, as it helps regulate collective stress. For Sigma men, calmness is not a mask, but a chosen way of engaging with the world. It is the result of valuing clarity over chaos and reflection over reaction. This doesn't mean they feel no fear or pain, they do, but they've learned that panic solves nothing, while stillness can illuminate the next step forward. In a noisy, frantic world, that calmness becomes rare and precious. It steadies not just the Sigma himself, but everyone around him, turning his inner refuge into a shared sanctuary. Number 5, purpose anchored in growth. Sigma males are not fueled by applause or recognition, and this sets them apart in a world often addicted to validation. Instead of chasing likes, approval, or external praise, they channel their energy inward. They become students of life, reading widely, reflecting deeply, and refining their thoughts and actions. In psychology, this tendency aligns with what is known as the drive that comes from within rather than from external rewards. People who operate from this inner compass tend to be more resilient, independent, and creative, since their growth isn't bound to others' opinions. This quiet pursuit of growth is not flashy. You won't see a Sigma male parading his achievements or demanding recognition. Instead, he works in silence, sharpening his mind, strengthening his character, and facing his flaws head-on. What makes this truly powerful is the discipline it requires. Neuroscience has shown that habits of self-reflection and consistent learning can actually rewire the brain, strengthening neural pathways that govern focus, resilience, and emotional regulation. In this way, the Sigma male's quiet path mirrors the discipline of monks or philosophers who dedicate their lives to higher purpose rather than shallow validation. What's remarkable is how this inward journey naturally radiates outward. When someone refines themselves, they inevitably impact the lives around them. A Sigma male may not seek to inspire, but by the very act of becoming grounded, self-aware, and authentic, he creates ripples that uplift others. This parallels spiritual traditions where growth is seen as not just personal but also collective, a dedication to becoming better for both oneself and the world. In many ways, their quiet transformation reflects an almost angelic quality, unseen, subtle, yet profoundly transformative. They don't shout their value, they embody it. Ultimately, the Sigma male's refusal to live for validation is an act of freedom. By turning away from external noise and leaning into self-refinement, he builds a life of depth and meaning. It is not about perfection, but about progress, a gentle resolve to be better today than yesterday. And in that pursuit, he demonstrates a truth as old as time, that the greatest changes often begin in silence, within the heart and mind of one who dares to grow quietly. Number 6, boundaries with compassion. In folklore and spiritual traditions, angels are often described as guardians who stand at the threshold between realms, exercising wisdom and restraint. They are not endlessly available, nor do they pour themselves out without limit. Instead, they embody discernment, the ability to decide what to welcome and what to decline. This quality of setting boundaries is not coldness, but a form of preservation. Without such balance, even divine messengers would become depleted and unable to fulfill their role. Interestingly, this mirrors the quiet but powerful way Sigma men move through life. Unlike more socially dominant archetypes, the Sigma male understands the value of controlled presence. He knows when to step forward and offer his energy, whether through kindness, guidance, or support, and when to step back into solitude, giving himself space to recover and reflect. This ability to balance openness with preservation is rooted in psychology as much as it is in philosophy. Research in behavioral science shows that people who set healthy boundaries tend to experience lower stress levels and greater resilience over time. Constantly saying yes to others without discernment often leads to burnout, emotional fatigue, and even physical illness. The Sigma male intuitively avoids this trap. Much like the angel who guards the gate, he recognizes that not everything deserves access to his time, emotions, or presence. By choosing carefully, he maintains the strength to give deeply when it truly matters. This makes his contributions more impactful and more authentic, because they are not given out of obligation, but from genuine intent. Culturally, we often equate constant availability with kindness or strength, but history and myth tell us otherwise. Consider the biblical archangel Michael, who is depicted as a warrior. He does not intervene in every situation, only in those where his presence is divinely required. Similarly, Sigma men carry a quiet, almost angelic discipline in knowing when to conserve themselves. This balance is what allows them to sustain their independence, avoid emotional entanglement in chaos, and still remain capable of acts of great generosity or compassion. In essence, both angels and Sigma males remind us of a timeless truth. True strength is not about endless giving, but about guarding one's ability to give. Preservation and discernment are not selfish. They are the very practices that make lasting impact possible. Number 7, authentic vulnerability. When he chooses to share his humanity, his doubts, regrets, fears, it is unforced, quietly honest. That brief, unguarded moment can feel like grace itself. Vulnerability, when not given to impress but to connect, becomes a healing space. In psychology, this is often described as authentic vulnerability, a state where one expresses inner struggles without performance or manipulation. Unlike oversharing, which can feel overwhelming or self-centered, authentic vulnerability creates a bridge between two people, fostering trust and empathy. Studies in social psychology, particularly the work of Dr. Brené Brown, highlight that vulnerability is not weakness, but courage. The courage to be seen as imperfect, yet real. From an educational perspective, vulnerability activates something called mirror neurons in the brain, which allow us to empathize with the emotions of others. When someone admits, "I'm afraid I might fail," the listener often recalls their own fears and feels less alone in them. This is why vulnerability is powerful in leadership, relationships, and even healing communities. It transforms isolation into belonging. In fact, research published in the shows that people who engage in reciprocal vulnerability report deeper bonds and higher relationship satisfaction. Vulnerability then becomes not just a personal act, but a social glue. Culturally, we often glorify strength, independence, and self-assurance. Yet history reminds us that even the strongest figures revealed their fragility. Abraham Lincoln, for instance, suffered from bouts of melancholy, but channeled it into empathy for a divided nation. Great leaders, artists, and philosophers have often found that their honesty about struggle made them more relatable, not less. Vulnerability brings balance. It strips away the illusion of perfection and reminds us of our shared humanity. Entertainingly, you might think of vulnerability as the plot twist in human connection. Just when we expect someone to keep the mask on, they take it off, and the story shifts. It's that cinematic moment when the hardened warrior admits he's scared, or the witty friend confesses they sometimes feel lonely. Those moments stick with us because they are rare, unpolished, and real. They are in many ways the heartbeat of every great story, whether in film, literature, or life. So when vulnerability is expressed not as a performance but as an offering, it becomes transformative. It's less about winning admiration and more about building communion. In those quiet confessions, we discover not weakness but strength, because it takes immense courage to let another person see us as we are, unshielded and unedited. Number 8, a quiet legacy of care. Angels don't always step into our lives with blinding light or heavenly choirs. More often they arrive quietly, through the kind of gestures so subtle we almost overlook them. A gentle word spoken at the right time, a calm presence in the middle of chaos, or simply someone who listens without judgment. These are the threads of an unseen legacy. Interestingly, psychology backs this up. Research in social science shows that people often remember the smallest acts of kindness far longer than the grand ones. These micro moments of compassion can reduce stress, increase a sense of belonging, and even improve long-term mental health. Sigma men, with their reserved nature and preference for depth over display, tend to embody this truth. They may not shout their support or advertise their loyalty, but those who encounter them often carry the memory of their presence for years. Think about it. Many historical figures described as quiet revolutionaries carried Sigma-like traits. They weren't always loud or seeking recognition, yet their influence was undeniable because they left behind something more enduring than noise: trust, respect, and presence. A Sigma male's silence is rarely empty, it's filled with attentiveness. That's why people often feel seen in their company, even when few words are exchanged. Studies in nonverbal communication suggest that being fully attentive, eye contact, patience, listening, can be more impactful than speaking the perfect phrase. This explains why friends often recall Sigma men not for speeches, but for the steady reassurance that someone truly cared, even if the expression was quiet. Over time, these moments accumulate into what could be called a quiet legacy. Unlike flashy gestures that fade, the impression of a reliable friend or the comfort of knowing someone stood beside you in silence tends to echo much longer. This mirrors how angels work. rarely through spectacle, but consistently through presence. Sigma men, knowingly or unknowingly, walk this same path. They may never label themselves as guides or guardians, but the lives they touch bear the imprint of their steady watchfulness. And while others may forget the loudest voices in the room, the memory of that one silent companion lingers, reminding us that care doesn't need to shout, it only needs to show up. In a world that often rewards the loud, the flamboyant, the visible, Sigma males remind us that profound goodness can be subtle, that strength can be still, that compassion can be calm. If you recognize these traits in yourself, know it is a quiet gift, awaiting its own gentle unfolding. Thank you for sharing this moment. May we carry its warmth into our days, observing, cultivating, and acknowledging the angels quietly walking among us and perhaps within us. In life, there are people you meet who seem to blend into the crowd. Nothing about them shouts for attention, and yet something about their presence lingers long after they've left. They are not loud, they are not flashy, they don't carry themselves with the desperate energy of someone needing to be seen. Instead, they remain quietly apart, like a shadow at the edge of the firelight. And yet you can't stop thinking about them. This is often the experience of encountering a Sigma male. Unlike the alpha, who thrives on dominance, or the beta, who seeks belonging, the Sigma exists outside the hierarchy altogether. He walks his own path, not above others, not beneath them, but entirely apart from the games people play. The strange thing is, the Sigma does not announce himself. He rarely declares who he is. Instead, he reveals himself through subtle signs, quiet traits that, when noticed, feel uncanny in their accuracy. Traits that make you wonder why he seems both familiar and unsettling. Today we're going to slow down and explore 6 of these signs, not in the sensational sense that social media often portrays them, but in a grounded way, focusing on the deeper psychology and lived reality of such men. By the end of this video, you may recognize someone in your life who fits these traits, or perhaps you may recognize them in yourself. Either way, what you'll learn will give you a greater understanding of how high-value men navigate the world without seeking recognition. So take a moment, get comfortable, and let's gently walk through the 6 uncanny signs that you've just met a real Sigma male. And number 1, his silence feels louder than words. The first thing you notice isn't what he says, but what he doesn't. Sigma males carry silence differently. It's not empty, it's full. When they pause, it doesn't feel like hesitation. It feels like intention. People often find this unsettling because silence usually demands filling. But with a Sigma, silence speaks. It speaks of observation, of calculation, of a mind that has learned to value words only when they carry weight. In a world where people often equate talking with intelligence, Sigma males flip the script by demonstrating that restraint can be far more powerful. Silence has been misunderstood for centuries. Ancient philosophers like Lao Tzu described silence as a form of wisdom, teaching that silence is a source of great strength. Neuroscience even backs this up. Studies show that silence stimulates brain growth in the hippocampus, the region tied to learning and memory. In other words, moments of quiet don't just reflect thought. They create space for deeper cognition. Sigma males instinctively embody this principle. They know that every pause, every unspoken word, builds an atmosphere that forces others to lean in and listen more carefully. Think of how different this is from typical social interactions. Most people scramble to fill awkward silences with small talk, often without meaning. But when a Sigma chooses not to respond immediately, it shifts the balance of the conversation. Others start to question their own words, or they wait, sensing that when he finally speaks, it will matter. This mirrors something psychologists call the power of the pause, where silence in communication actually enhances authority and credibility. Politicians, negotiators, and leaders use it deliberately, but for the Sigma, it's second nature. In practice, this silence is not about aloofness or superiority, it's about control. By holding back, Sigma males protect their energy from being wasted on noise. They study their surroundings, absorb details others overlook, and decide carefully what deserves a response. This is why they often leave a lasting impression. People remember not the chatter, but the presence, the stillness, and the strange magnetism of someone who doesn't need validation through constant words. So when silence surrounds a Sigma, it isn't emptiness, it's depth. It's the quiet confidence of a man who knows his value isn't tied to how much he speaks, but to how much meaning he brings when he finally does. In a noisy world, his silence is not just absence, it is presence. And that perhaps is what makes it feel so powerful. Number 2, he observes before he engages. Sigma males rarely rush into conversations or force their presence in a room. Instead, they operate with patience and observation, much like a chess player who studies the board long before making a move. Their gaze is steady, not aggressive or overbearing, but it carries a depth that unsettles many. This is because when a Sigma looks at you, it often feels like he is not just noticing your words or gestures, but studying the unspoken, the pauses, the tone, and the energy behind what you're presenting. Psychologists have noted that individuals with heightened observational skills tend to pick up on micro-expressions, those fleeting facial movements that reveal true emotions even when someone is trying to hide them. A Sigma by nature reads these cues almost instinctively, which explains why people often feel seen in his presence, even if he has said very little. This quality is not simply a social mystery, it is rooted in behavioral science. Research on social perception suggests that humans are constantly sending signals through body language, often unconsciously. A Sigma male excels at decoding these signals because he isn't distracted by the urge to dominate the conversation or prove himself in the moment. While an alpha might command attention with charisma and energy, the Sigma quietly gathers information, storing details for later use. This makes his silence feel heavy because others sense that he knows more than he reveals. It's a psychological effect similar to what scholars call the observer's advantage. The one who speaks less perceives more. Culturally, this trait has been recognized for centuries. Ancient philosophers like Lao Tzu emphasized the power of listening over speaking, noting that silence often carries more wisdom than words. Even in modern leadership studies, the most effective leaders are frequently those who listen actively before making decisions. Sigma males embody this principle naturally, which is why their presence feels impactful, even when they are silent. People instinctively become more self-aware when under the gaze of someone who seems to notice everything. They adjust their posture, rephrase their words, and second-guess their own behavior, all without the Sigma needing to say a word. What makes this so fascinating is that the Sigma's observational style isn't about intimidation, it's about understanding. In a world where most people rush to speak, he takes the time to watch. In doing so, he gathers insights others overlook, who's genuinely confident, who's insecure, and who's pretending. And while this can make others uneasy, it also explains why Sigmas are often trusted advisors, mysterious confidants, or quiet disruptors. They remind us that true power doesn't always come from what you say, but from how deeply you perceive the world around you. Number 3, he's detached from social expectations. You might notice he doesn't react the way others do. Where most men seek validation or approval, the Sigma stands apart. His lack of attachment to trends, hierarchies, or recognition feels strange to people who are used to predictable social scripts. This detachment isn't arrogance, it's freedom. At first, it can be unsettling. In a world where so much of human behavior revolves around seeking status or belonging, someone who doesn't play by those rules looks mysterious, even intimidating. But beneath that surface lies a deeper truth. The Sigma male operates from a foundation of self-reliance and inner stability that psychology often describes as intrinsic motivation, the ability to act based on personal values rather than external rewards. This independence is not something developed overnight. Studies in personality psychology show that individuals with a strong sense of autonomy tend to resist peer pressure, think critically, and develop a sharper awareness of their own goals. Sigmas embody this, and it explains why they often step outside traditional hierarchies without fear of being excluded. They don't crave approval because their self-worth isn't tied to others' opinions. This doesn't mean they reject society altogether. It means they engage with it selectively, on their terms. In fact, sociologists point out that people like this often become innovators precisely because they aren't trapped in the cycle of imitation. To others, his calm detachment might look like coldness, but it's actually a rare form of freedom. Think of how most men are pulled in countless directions. Trends dictate their clothes, peers influence their habits, and social media dictates what they should think or feel. The Sigma quietly opts out. This doesn't make him superior, but it does give him control over his mental space. Neuroscience research suggests that people who spend less time seeking external validation often experience reduced stress and higher focus because they aren't constantly evaluating themselves against shifting social standards. That ability to conserve mental energy explains why a Sigma can appear so composed, even in chaotic environments. And yet this composure is what draws people in. His silence isn't empty. It carries weight. People notice when someone doesn't flinch under pressure, doesn't bend to impress, and doesn't scramble for recognition. It's a quiet kind of power, one that others instinctively respect, even if they can't quite explain why. In the end, his detachment is not a wall, it's a filter, allowing him to move through life authentically, unburdened by the noise that consumes so many others. What seems strange at first is, in truth, a hidden strength. The freedom to live untouched by society's constant demand for approval. Number 4, he attracts without trying. There's something magnetic about men who don't chase. And this phenomenon has fascinated psychologists, sociologists, and everyday observers alike. A Sigma male's quiet pull is not a matter of mystery or luck. It is deeply rooted in human psychology, biology, and social dynamics. Unlike the traditional alpha who thrives on visibility and dominance, or the beta who leans on conformity, the Sigma's power lies in his independence and detachment from approval. This makes him appear rare in a world where most people are constantly performing to be noticed. The paradox is simple. By not chasing, he becomes the one who is pursued. From a psychological perspective, humans are wired to value scarcity. Studies in behavioral economics have shown that when something or someone seems less available, it automatically feels more valuable. The Sigma's independence creates an aura of scarcity. He is not desperate for company or validation, so his time and attention feel like a rare currency. People instinctively sense this and are drawn toward him, sometimes without fully understanding why. It's similar to what social psychologists call the reactance effect. When you can't easily have something, your desire for it intensifies. In relationships, this effect can be powerful. His lack of neediness makes others want his presence even more. There's also a biological element at play. Evolutionary psychology suggests that self-possession signals competence. Throughout history, leaders, hunters, and protectors who remained calm under pressure were more likely to survive and pass on their genes. This calmness is something a Sigma male radiates naturally. His stillness, his silence, and his ability to hold his ground without theatrics give off an energy that feels trustworthy and strong. It's not loud dominance, it's quiet resilience, which many people find far more compelling. In modern society, where everyone is constantly broadcasting themselves on social media, the Sigma stands apart as someone who doesn't need to announce his every move. He values privacy, independence, and self-direction. That authenticity cuts through the noise. While others try to impress with filters, curated lives, or exaggerated confidence, the Sigma captivates simply by being grounded in who he is. This authenticity is disarming. People feel like they are encountering something rare in a world full of performance. Interestingly, research in interpersonal communication also shows that deep listening is one of the rarest and most attractive social skills. A Sigma doesn't just wait for his turn to speak, he listens with full presence. This creates the uncanny sense that he can see beyond surface words, reading people at a level that others rarely reach. Many mistake this for mystery, when in reality it is a skill born from detachment and focus. So while others struggle to impress through effort, the Sigma captivates through ease. His refusal to chase is not laziness, but a reflection of self-sufficiency. He is whole within himself, and that wholeness creates a gravitational pull. To those who don't understand it, this quiet magnetism feels uncanny, even unfair. But in truth, it is the natural outcome of independence, authenticity, and the timeless law of human desire. We are always drawn to what does not beg for our attention. And number 5, he's comfortable with being misunderstood. Most people feel an instinctive need to defend themselves. If someone questions their choices, misunderstands their motives, or paints them in a negative light, they quickly step in with explanations, eager to clear the air. But the Sigma male operates differently. He does not feel compelled to justify himself to anyone. He knows that another person's perception does not define his reality. This quiet assurance can be unsettling in a world where we are conditioned to explain, prove, and constantly defend who we are. For the Sigma, silence itself becomes a kind of armor, a shield that communicates strength without words. Psychologists often point out that human beings are social creatures wired to seek approval and belonging. Evolutionary studies reveal that in early societies, survival often depended on group acceptance. To be cast out was almost a death sentence. This explains why many people over-explain or seek validation, fearing rejection if misunderstood. But Sigmas, often described in modern psychology as lone wolves, bypass this social wiring. They don't feel the urgent pull to fit neatly into expectations or persuade others of their worth. Instead, they live by an inner compass, guided by principles rather than the shifting opinions of others. Interestingly, this quality mirrors aspects of Stoic philosophy. Thinkers like Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus taught that a person's peace comes from controlling their own mind, not the judgments of others. A Sigma embodies this idea in practice. By refusing to explain himself, he sends a subtle message. Your opinion has no power here. This is not arrogance, but clarity. He knows that real strength is demonstrated not in constant verbal defense, but in living authentically regardless of who misunderstands. Sociologically, this behavior creates a powerful ripple effect. When someone refuses to defend themselves, it unsettles people who are used to the usual back and forth of arguments. Silence leaves space for reflection, and that pause often makes others reconsider their assumptions. A Sigma's quiet confidence can command more respect than 1,000 words ever could. Silence, in this sense, becomes both peace and power. It shields him from needless conflict while projecting an aura of mystery and control. In a noisy age where everyone is eager to explain, argue, and prove their point, the Sigma male stands apart. His refusal to be defined by external perceptions is not weakness but strength. His silence is not emptiness but presence. And in that calm refusal to play society's game of constant explanation, he reveals the paradox of true confidence. The less you need to prove, the more powerful you become. Number 6, he feels familiar yet elusive. The final sign of encountering a true Sigma is one of the most paradoxical and yet the most unforgettable. The strange sensation that you've known him all your life, while at the same time realizing you may never truly grasp him. This balance of closeness and distance is part of the Sigma's quiet enigma. It leaves an imprint on people's minds because it's so different from ordinary interactions. Familiarity pulls you in, but mystery holds you at bay. He becomes a figure that feels simultaneously approachable and untouchable, like a friend you could share silence with, yet also someone whose depths you might never fully uncover. From a psychological perspective, this duality stems from the Sigma male's self-contained nature. Research in social psychology often highlights how humans are drawn to a balance of predictability and novelty in others. Too much predictability feels dull, while too much mystery feels intimidating. The Sigma embodies both. His grounded presence provides a sense of stability. You feel safe, seen, and oddly at ease. Yet his independence, his refusal to fit into conventional molds, keeps you guessing. This creates what psychologists call intermittent reinforcement, the same mechanism that makes rare but meaningful interactions unforgettable. In evolutionary terms, humans have always valued individuals who could both connect deeply and stand apart. Anthropologists note that tribal societies often had figures who didn't fully participate in group hierarchies but were nonetheless respected: lone hunters, healers, or storytellers. Their combination of closeness to the tribe and distance from it gave them a unique status. Sigma males mirror this archetype in modern society. They can blend in without effort, offering warmth and familiarity, yet they hold something back, a part of themselves that remains untouched, preserved, and deeply private. That paradox is powerful because it disrupts the usual patterns of human interaction. Most people either lean toward openness, spilling their stories quickly, or toward guardedness, building walls. The Sigma does both. He reveals enough for you to feel connected, but withholds enough for you to remain intrigued. This balance creates a lasting impression. It's why people often walk away from a brief encounter with a Sigma feeling both comfortable and curious, as though they've brushed against something profound. but just out of reach. In literature and film, this archetype is often seen in the mysterious wanderer or the quiet anti-hero. Characters like Clint Eastwood's Man with No Name, or even modern adaptations like John Wick embody this paradox. Strangers who feel familiar, yet are never entirely knowable. These figures capture the imagination because they awaken a primal recognition that not everything in life should be fully understood. Some presences are meant to be experienced, not solved. So when you meet a Sigma and feel that odd combination of closeness and mystery, recognize it for what it is. You are witnessing a rare balance, an energy that is both grounding and elusive. That's what makes the Sigma unforgettable. He doesn't just enter your memory, he lingers there, like a riddle that refuses to be solved, yet somehow brings you peace in the wondering. Meeting a Sigma male is never loud, never dramatic, and yet it leaves an impression. The experience is less about what he does and more about how he makes you feel. His silence lingers, his presence unsettles, and his detachment reminds you of the weight most of us carry, seeking validation, chasing approval, and explaining ourselves endlessly. A real Sigma doesn't play that game. He shows you, often without trying, that it's possible to live on your own terms without being bound by the noise of the crowd. And that is what makes the encounter both mysterious and inspiring. The truth is, Sigma males are rare, but their lessons are not reserved for them alone. You don't have to be born into this archetype to adopt its wisdom. You can learn to embrace solitude without fear. You can choose silence over unnecessary noise. You can find strength in walking your own path, even when others don't understand. So the next time you meet someone who carries these signs, don't rush to label or judge them. Instead, let the experience remind you of the value of stillness, independence, and authenticity. Because whether you are Sigma or not, the path of self-mastery is open to every man who dares to walk it. There's a breed of men who don't play by society's rules, men who move in silence, yet somehow command the loudest respect. Unlike the majority who chase validation, recognition, and approval, the Sigma male detaches himself from the game altogether. This detachment doesn't make him invisible. In fact, it makes him more magnetic. People are naturally intrigued by what they can't control or fully understand, and the Sigma embodies that paradox. He doesn't chase respect, but respect follows him. He doesn't demand attention, yet attention gravitates toward his stillness. This is why ordinary men often envy him, not because he's louder, richer, or more dominant, but because he refuses to need what they worship. Human social structures, both in history and psychology, are built on hierarchies. From tribes to corporations, dominance and submission dictate much of human interaction. The alpha thrives by leading and competing, the beta follows through cooperation, and the omega often withdraws in resignation. But the Sigma is different. He exists outside that chain. He doesn't seek to dominate nor to submit. He operates independently, creating his own systems and pathways. In sociological terms, this positions him as a lone wolf, someone who can function within a group if necessary, but doesn't depend on it for his identity or power. And in a world where conformity is the norm, genuine independence becomes the rarest and most envied form of strength. What makes the Sigma especially compelling is not rebellion for rebellion's sake, but quiet mastery. He thrives on self-discipline, critical thinking, and inner focus. Research in psychology shows that people with high levels of self-reliance often outperform peers in creative problem-solving because they're less influenced by groupthink. That's the Sigma advantage. He doesn't blindly follow trends, he questions them. He doesn't waste energy proving himself, he invests it in becoming himself. This quiet refusal to play society's games is why others both admire and resent him. So this isn't about glorifying the Sigma, it's about revealing the mindset that sets him apart. To live like a Sigma is to reject the pre-written scripts and carve your own. And in a world obsessed with noise, his silence becomes the loudest roar. Habit 1. Strategic detachment. Ordinary men often find themselves caught in a relentless cycle of comparison, measuring their worth against the achievements, possessions, and social status of others. It's a subtle form of captivity. The more they look around, the smaller they feel, and the more effort they expend trying to fit into a system that dictates success according to someone else's rules. The Sigma male, however, has mastered the art of detachment. He doesn't conform to societal expectations or seek validation from peers, bosses, or social media metrics. Instead, he evaluates life on his own terms, pursuing personal growth, meaningful experiences, and independence rather than recognition. This ability to disengage from external pressures is not mere laziness or apathy. It's strategic freedom. Psychologists have long noted that chronic comparison can trigger anxiety and reduce life satisfaction, and the Sigma's detachment acts as a natural shield against these psychological traps. By stepping away from the race for approval, he maintains mental clarity and emotional equilibrium, giving him a unique form of power that ordinary men envy. Interestingly, this doesn't mean he rejects society entirely. Rather, he participates selectively, engaging in systems and communities only when they align with his principles or serve his long-term goals. This selective engagement allows him to conserve energy and focus on what truly matters, avoiding the exhaustion that comes from trying to keep up with everyone else. His detachment also fosters creativity and independent thinking, as he isn't constrained by popular opinion or trends. Historical examples of individuals who demonstrated this Sigma-like detachment include artists, inventors, and thinkers who prioritized vision over approval, such as Nikola Tesla or Emily Dickinson, who pursued their work quietly, often isolated, yet left an impact that transcended conventional measures of success. The Sigma's freedom from societal comparison also gives him an aura of mystery, confidence, and authenticity, qualities that draw others to him, often unknowingly. In essence, his detachment is both a shield and a weapon. It protects him from the pitfalls of constant validation seeking while positioning him to act decisively, creatively, and autonomously. Ordinary men, chained by their need for approval, may never fully grasp this quiet but formidable power, which makes the Sigma male a figure of silent admiration and subtle influence in any environment. Habit 2, moving unnoticed. The Sigma male's mastery of invisibility is less about physical disappearance and more about social and psychological presence, or the strategic lack thereof. Unlike the average man who seeks validation and thrives on constant attention, the Sigma has learned the power of subtlety. He knows when to blend in with the crowd, adopting the rhythm of his surroundings without drawing unnecessary eyes or energy. This ability to withdraw is not a sign of weakness or fear, but a calculated maneuver, allowing him to observe, analyze, and understand the dynamics around him without interference. Psychologists studying social behavior often note that individuals who can step back and disengage from social pressures gain a distinct advantage in decision-making, as they are less likely to be swayed by groupthink or emotional manipulation. The Sigma's unpredictability is a natural extension of this skill. People around him can never fully anticipate his moves, which creates an aura of intrigue and subtle authority. This unpredictability is not chaotic, but deliberate, rooted in careful observation and timing. By appearing only when it serves a purpose, the Sigma exerts a quiet control over his environment. He influences outcomes not by force, but by strategic presence. Interestingly, this aligns with behavioral studies that highlight how human attention is disproportionately captured by those who are inconsistent or selectively visible, as our brains are wired to seek patterns and explanations. The Sigma leverages this cognitive tendency to his advantage, maintaining an enigmatic profile that encourages curiosity, respect, and sometimes envy. Moreover, his invisibility allows him to navigate social hierarchies without being trapped in conventional roles or expectations, giving him freedom that most people rarely experience. In practice, this means he can enter a room unnoticed, assess the dynamics, and choose exactly when and how to engage, maximizing influence without confrontation. Over time, this behavior fosters a reputation not just for intelligence or skill, but for a kind of almost mystical awareness of timing, space, and human nature. It's a subtle, often misunderstood form of power, one that does not demand attention but quietly commands it, making others wonder and sometimes even fear how he consistently seems to be one step ahead. Through invisibility, the Sigma male exemplifies the art of selective engagement, turning presence and absence into strategic tools for personal and social mastery. Habit 3, self-reliance. The Sigma male's strength is not borrowed, it is meticulously crafted. Unlike those who rely on external support or safety nets, he cultivates a self-reliance that permeates every aspect of his life, from finances to problem solving. This is not simply about having money or intelligence. It is a disciplined approach to developing the skills and resilience necessary to navigate the world independently. For instance, when it comes to finances, the Sigma doesn't just save or invest blindly. He learns the mechanics of wealth creation, understanding investments, passive income streams, and resource management in a way that allows him to operate without fear of sudden setbacks. In problem solving, he studies patterns, anticipates challenges, and often solves issues before they even arise, turning obstacles into opportunities for growth. This independence makes him untouchable because his stability and power do not rely on anyone else. Ordinary men, by contrast, often depend on networks, social validation, or established systems to maintain their position. This dependency, while seemingly convenient, makes them vulnerable to change, manipulation, and failure. The Sigma's self-built foundation is a fortress. He is aware that real power stems not from influence over others, but from mastery over oneself. Historically, many figures admired for their ingenuity and resilience, from inventors like Nikola Tesla to explorers like Ernest Shackleton, embodied this principle. They relied on skill, preparation, and ingenuity rather than external assistance. In modern life, this translates into a mindset of continuous improvement, learning new skills, adapting to challenges, and making calculated decisions that reinforce independence. It also involves emotional resilience. The Sigma doesn't seek validation from social circles or external authorities, but builds confidence from competence and personal achievement. Ordinary men may envy this because it is rare, requiring patience, discipline, and the willingness to endure periods of isolation or struggle. The Sigma's strength is not flashy or performative, yet it is undeniable. By owning his foundation, he ensures that no circumstance, person, or crisis can destabilize him. He is not only prepared for life's uncertainties, but thrives in them, embodying a level of freedom and self-determination that others can only aspire to. In essence, the Sigma male demonstrates that true power is internal, cultivated through persistent effort, unwavering focus, and a refusal to outsource the most important aspects of his life. Habit 4, monastic focus. In a world buzzing with notifications, endless scrolling, and constant interruptions, the Sigma male's focus stands out as almost mythical. While most people allow their attention to drift from one fleeting interest to another, the Sigma operates like a precision instrument. When he sets his mind on a goal, whether it's mastering a complex skill, diving deep into a field of study, or building a business from scratch, he commits completely, often to the point of obsession. Neuroscience shows that this kind of deep focus, sometimes called flow, allows the brain to work at peak efficiency, making learning faster, problem-solving sharper, and creativity more potent. Ordinary men, by contrast, tend to divide their attention across countless distractions, which research has linked to decreased productivity and cognitive fatigue. What makes the Sigma's approach even more enviable is not just the intensity, but the consistency. He doesn't rely on fleeting bursts of motivation. He cultivates discipline, understanding that sustained effort over time compounds into results that others can only dream of. This is why Sigmas often achieve mastery in areas where others plateau, whether in intellectual pursuits, entrepreneurship, or artistic endeavors. Their focus is not rigid or robotic, it is strategic. The Sigma chooses his mission carefully, understanding which objectives align with his long-term vision, and ruthlessly ignores the noise that tempts others into wasted effort. Psychologists note that this type of selective attention is a hallmark of high-performing individuals, allowing them to filter out distractions and maintain clarity even under pressure. In social situations, this laser-like dedication can make the Sigma appear enigmatic, even intimidating, because people sense the underlying intensity driving him. Ordinary men, accustomed to spreading their energy thin across social media, casual hobbies, and superficial pursuits, can't help but feel a mix of admiration and envy. They see the Sigma cutting through the chaos of modern life with remarkable precision, turning potential into results and vision into reality. In essence, the Sigma's lethal focus is not just a personal advantage, it is a form of power. It transforms ordinary effort into extraordinary accomplishment, proving that in a distracted world, The ability to concentrate is not just rare, it is revolutionary. Habit 5. Ghosting as a strategy. The Sigma male's relationship with time, energy, and personal boundaries is a defining aspect of his persona, and it's something that ordinary men often secretly envy. Unlike most people who feel obligated to explain themselves, seek approval, or fight to maintain every connection, the Sigma recognizes that his time and energy are finite and sacred. If someone disrespects him, whether by wasting his time, depleting his energy, or violating his boundaries, he doesn't hesitate. He withdraws instantly, and importantly, he does so without explanation or apology. This isn't arrogance, it's a deep understanding of cause and effect, the principle that not all engagements are worthy of his presence. Where others may argue, plead, or rationalize staying in toxic relationships, the Sigma embraces detachment, knowing that absence often communicates far more than words ever could. Historically, great thinkers and leaders have demonstrated similar detachment. Figures like Nikola Tesla or Bruce Lee understood the power of prioritizing focus over social obligation, allowing them to preserve mental energy for what truly mattered. This capacity for strategic withdrawal is why many perceive Sigma men as mysterious or untouchable. Silence, in this context, is not emptiness but a deliberate, powerful tool. While confrontation can escalate conflict, silence can establish respect and command authority in a way that words rarely achieve. Ordinary men, often conditioned to fear loss or rejection, cling to relationships, even ones that drain or harm them, because social validation feels safer than solitude. The Sigma, however, thrives in independence. He understands that true influence does not come from constant engagement, but from presence and intentionality. He does not fear disappearing from someone's life because he recognizes that his absence is a natural consequence of self-respect and discernment. This detachment is not passive. It is active mastery over one's environment, energy, and priorities. The ability to withdraw without guilt, explanation, or drama is a skill that requires both emotional intelligence and self-confidence. And it is precisely this skill that ignites both admiration and envy in others. In a world where people are tethered by fear, social obligation, or emotional insecurity, the Sigma male's refusal to compromise on his boundaries is a quiet yet profound declaration of freedom, a freedom that ordinary men often wish they could claim for themselves. Habit 6. Unshakable boundaries. In today's fast-paced, image-driven world, the ability to assert one's boundaries with unwavering clarity is a rare and powerful skill. The man who isn't swayed by flattery, status, or social pressure exemplifies a kind of quiet strength that many aspire to, but few truly achieve. When he says no, it's not a hesitant refusal or a polite suggestion. It is absolute, final, and resolute. This firmness doesn't come from arrogance or isolation. It comes from a deep understanding of self-worth and personal values. Psychological research on assertiveness highlights that individuals who maintain firm boundaries tend to experience higher levels of self-respect, reduced stress, and better interpersonal relationships because they communicate honestly and avoid the resentment that arises from saying yes when they truly mean no. Unlike the majority who bend to gain approval or avoid conflict, he operates from a place of authenticity, not performance. His boundaries are not rigid walls meant to shut people out, but gates he opens and closes with intentionality, allowing only what aligns with his principles and rejecting what doesn't. This precision reflects emotional intelligence as he navigates complex social dynamics without losing himself in the process. Neuroscience even suggests that people who enforce their boundaries experience greater mental clarity and emotional resilience, as they are less likely to be drained by external pressures or manipulated by others' agendas. Observers often envy this trait because it represents freedom, the freedom to act according to one's values, the freedom to prioritize one's own well-being, and the freedom to interact with the world on one's own terms. In a society where so many chase validation and approval, the ability to remain unshaken is magnetic and commanding without being domineering. He inspires respect, not through intimidation, but through the quiet, unwavering demonstration of self-control and integrity. In essence, his firmness is a blueprint for anyone seeking balance between compassion and self-preservation. It is proof that true strength lies not in dominance or aggression, but in the ability to decide decisively, act consistently, and honor one's own standards above the sway of fleeting external forces. This is a skill, a mindset, and a lifestyle that transforms interactions, relationships, and ultimately the trajectory of one's life. Habit 7. Skill mastery. The Sigma male's approach to life is fundamentally different from the average man's. While many focus on appearances, accolades, or the approval of others, the Sigma invests in true mastery, a quiet, relentless dedication to becoming exceptional in his chosen fields. This isn't about showing off or collecting trophies. It's about developing skills and knowledge to such a degree that competence itself becomes undeniable. Whether it's in business, he studies market trends, psychology, and negotiation tactics to consistently make strategic moves. In combat, he hones reflexes, awareness, and discipline, often training in multiple disciplines to maintain adaptability. In creativity, he experiments, practices, and learns from failures until his work carries a signature of excellence. In strategy, he observes, calculates, and anticipates outcomes with precision. Ordinary men, on the other hand, often spend more energy performing than preparing. They chase visibility, recognition, or immediate results, but lack the depth of skill or insight to back it up. The Sigma's mastery is like a slow-burning engine, quiet, powerful, and inexorably effective, while the average man's efforts resemble fireworks, flashy, temporary, and largely superficial. Historical examples abound. Leonardo da Vinci spent years sketching, experimenting, and studying anatomy long before the world recognized his genius. Similarly, in modern business, innovators like Elon Musk quietly immerse themselves in learning engineering, physics, and business strategy before their breakthroughs become headline news. What makes the Sigma enviable is not arrogance or aggression, but a magnetic combination of competence, self-discipline, and foresight. People sense it instinctively, often feeling inferior because the Sigma has spent decades cultivating skills and knowledge that can't be faked, while the rest are left chasing applause for efforts that rarely translate into true mastery. This dynamic underscores a timeless principle. Preparation outweighs performance, and mastery always commands respect, whether it is loudly acknowledged or quietly observed. Habit 8. Freedom over recognition. Perhaps the most envied habit of a Sigma male is his unshakable devotion to freedom over validation. While most men seek acknowledgement, applause, and approval from their peers or society, the Sigma walks a different path, one guided by self-reliance and inner conviction rather than external recognition. He is the man who would rather live unnoticed yet fully autonomous than occupy the spotlight, but remain bound by expectations, social norms, or obligations he never chose. This preference for autonomy doesn't make him antisocial, it makes him discerning. He engages with others, yet he does so on his terms, and this independence creates a magnetic aura that others instinctively notice and secretly envy. Psychologists have noted that individuals who prioritize intrinsic rewards over extrinsic validation often exhibit higher resilience, creativity, and satisfaction in life because they are not constantly tethered to fluctuating opinions or societal pressures. This independence allows the Sigma male to pursue interests, ideas, and passions that might appear unconventional, risky, or misunderstood, yet he is unbothered by judgment. It unnerves men who secretly crave applause, for it reminds them of the invisible chains they carry, the need to perform, to impress, to belong. In contrast, the Sigma's life, though quieter, is unshackled and profound. He embodies the paradox of being both present and detached, influential yet untouched by the desire for recognition. The freedom he cultivates is not simply the absence of constraint, but the presence of self-mastery, a mastery that fascinates and intimidates, that draws admiration even from those who cannot quite replicate it. In a world obsessed with visibility, the Sigma male proves that true power lies in the liberty to exist authentically, unseen and unconstrained. What sets the Sigma male apart isn't flashy wealth or charm, it's a rare inner discipline and self-mastery. Operating outside societal norms, he remains detached, yet focused, unaffected by approval, criticism, or expectation. This enigmatic freedom, coupled with unwavering purpose, makes him both admirable and enviable, quietly commanding respect without seeking it. There's a quiet power in the way a Sigma male moves through the world. He doesn't announce his presence with flashy gestures or charm his way into rooms with rehearsed lines. Instead, he carries an aura of detachment that paradoxically draws people in. While most men might seek approval or validation to feel significant, the Sigma male is self-sufficient, rooted in internal validation rather than external applause. Psychologists link this trait to a high degree of self-differentiation, the ability to remain true to oneself while remaining emotionally neutral to social pressures. This isn't arrogance, it's clarity. The Sigma male doesn't need to prove anything, and that subtle self-assurance becomes magnetic. When he enters a room, he observes rather than performs. He reads people like open books, not to manipulate, but to understand the world around him. This observational sharpness, often mistaken for aloofness, is actually emotional intelligence in stealth mode. Women, especially those attuned to nuance, notice these details. They notice how he listens more than he speaks, how his silence carries more weight than someone else's flattery. They notice how he leaves without explanation, only to reappear better than before, not because he's playing games, but because solitude fuels him. This type of man doesn't chase love, and perhaps that's what makes love chase him. He doesn't realize the impact of his calm demeanor, or how his mysterious stillness becomes an echo in someone's mind. Women aren't just reacting to what he does, they're responding to what he withholds. The Sigma male's authenticity and independence create a psychological tension, a mix of admiration, curiosity, and desire. He may think he goes unnoticed, but the truth is, he's unforgettable. And today we dive deeper, not into how he chases women, but into what women secretly admire about him. This isn't about pickup tactics or seduction strategies. This is about real, organic attraction rooted in character. The world he walks in, it's one of quiet power. Let's explore it. Number one, his emotional control. He doesn't overreact, he doesn't overshare, he processes everything internally, efficiently. To women, this signals strength, not emotional absence, but emotional discipline. And this is where most people misunderstand the Sigma male. In a world that thrives on noise, instant reactions, and performative vulnerability, the Sigma's quiet self-control stands out. He isn't cold or emotionally unavailable, rather he practices what psychologists call a core trait linked to mental resilience and leadership. Instead of venting every emotion the moment it arises, he reflects, analyzes, and responds only when necessary. This doesn't mean he's indifferent. In fact, he's often more aware of his emotions than those who constantly display them. He just doesn't need to broadcast every internal ripple. And that kind of control, especially in high-pressure situations, is rare. Biologically, women are wired to associate stability with security, and stability often reveals itself through measured, composed behavior. This is why a man who doesn't flinch at chaos, who remains centered when others spiral, appears deeply attractive. Emotional discipline isn't just about keeping a cool face. It's about demonstrating maturity, self-awareness, and the ability to lead oneself before leading others. The Sigma male's strength isn't in brute force or loud declarations, but in his ability to remain rooted while others are tossed by the storm. This restraint, this mystery, creates gravity. It's not manipulation, it's mastery, and while others are oversharing on timelines or blowing up in traffic, the Sigma male has already processed the situation, learned from it, and moved on. Silently, effectively, and always in control. Number two, his independence. He's his own man, completely, unapologetically. He doesn't orbit around anyone's expectations, not friends, not family, not women. This self-possession is more than just personality. It's a deeply rooted psychological trait known as internal locus of control. People with this trait believe they are in charge of their own lives, decisions, and outcomes. They don't rely on the validation or direction of others. And here's where it gets interesting. This kind of autonomy is deeply attractive, especially to women. Why? Because in a world where so many chase approval, a man who doesn't seek it stands out. His independence becomes a form of silent charisma. He's not dismissive, he simply doesn't bend to social pressure. That refusal to conform creates a powerful sense of mystery. Women don't feel like they've figured him out in 5 minutes. Instead, they feel challenged, intrigued, and even a little enchanted. Evolutionary psychology supports this dynamic. Throughout history, those who were least desperate for acceptance often held the most power, and that quiet power still draws people in today. The Sigma male doesn't reject connection, but he does it to complete himself. His world is full without external validation, and paradoxically, that's what makes others want to be part of it. He's not trying to impress. He's simply living on his terms. And in doing so, he becomes unforgettable. It's not arrogance, it's sovereignty, and that is a rare and magnetic force. Number 3, his deep thinking. He's not quick to speak, and that's no accident. In a world overflowing with noise, constant updates, hot takes, and endless chatter, his silence becomes a kind of power. When he talks, it's not just to fill space or gain approval. It's measured, intentional, and rare. And ironically, that scarcity makes his words feel heavier, more valuable. This is a psychological phenomenon known as the scarcity effect, where people tend to place higher value on things that are less readily available. His restraint signals discipline, intelligence, and control, traits that are deeply attractive on a subconscious level. Women, in particular, are wired to respond to men who project calm authority. According to studies in evolutionary psychology, traits like confidence, emotional control, and self-possession are often interpreted as signs of high value and strong leadership potential. That's why his quiet confidence doesn't go unnoticed. He doesn't rush to dominate conversations or drown others out. Instead, he lets silence work in his favor, building tension and curiosity, and when he finally speaks, people lean in. Every word sounds like it matters, because it does. There's a certain gravity to a man who speaks with purpose, especially in a society that often rewards volume over substance. Women are drawn to that presence. It suggests that he thinks before he moves and moves with intention. He's not reacting, he's responding, he's not trying to impress. He simply is. That stillness, that control, that air of mystery, it's magnetic. He doesn't just talk, he communicates. And in doing so, he sets himself apart as someone who doesn't need to be loud to be heard. Number 4, his ability to ghost without guilt. To a Sigma male, cutting contact isn't an act of cruelty, it's an act of clarity. It's not about drama or punishment, but about alignment. He sees communication as sacred, energy as currency, and presence as a privilege, not a right. When he walks away, it's because the environment no longer reflects mutual respect, truth, or value. He doesn't ghost to gain attention or play emotional games. He vanishes because peace is more valuable than forced connection. Unlike others who might cling to fading ties out of fear, guilt, or loneliness, the Sigma male makes a clean break, not to hurt, but to heal. To the woman who witnesses this withdrawal, it may sting at first, but if she's honest with herself, she'll recognize that it isn't bitterness. It's boundaries. His silence speaks louder than arguments. It's a language of self-worth. Studies in psychology support this. People with secure self-esteem are less likely to tolerate disrespect or inconsistency. They prioritize their well-being and emotional safety. Sigma males, known for their introspective nature and emotional independence, embody this truth. They don't chase validation or permission to leave a toxic space. They exit gracefully, quietly, and with finality. And paradoxically, this detachment often leaves a louder echo than any desperate plea or drawn-out goodbye. In a world obsessed with constant communication and digital availability, the Sigma male's decision to go silent is revolutionary. It teaches a valuable lesson, that not all exits are rooted in hate. Some are built on dignity. His retreat isn't an attack, it's a declaration. I value myself too much to stay where I'm not valued, and that, whether understood immediately or not, earns respect. Cutting contact isn't cold, it's clarity wrapped in courage, and it separates the truly strong from the silently suffering. Number 5. His boundaries, he doesn't explain them, he doesn't enforce them with emotion, he simply withdraws. And that unspoken consequence forces people to either level up or leave. This is the silent power of a Sigma male's boundaries. Unlike most people who communicate their limits with heated emotions, drawn-out arguments, or long-winded explanations, the Sigma operates from a place of calm clarity. He doesn't shout, he doesn't plead, he doesn't negotiate. He observes patterns, notices when respect is violated, and exits without fanfare. This behavior isn't a manipulation tactic, it's self-respect in motion. Psychologically, this aligns with a concept called silent boundary enforcement, where an individual maintains control not by reacting, but by removing access. Research in interpersonal psychology shows that withdrawal, especially in high-value individuals, creates a vacuum effect. People either evolve to meet the standards silently imposed, or they fade out of the Sigma's world. The Sigma knows that true power doesn't beg for recognition. It simply exists, radiating a standard so strong that others either rise to match it or fall away. It's not passive aggression, it's not ghosting. It's the non-verbal communication of someone who refuses to be drained. This is a form of emotional discipline rooted in Stoic philosophy. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one." That's exactly what the Sigma does. He leads by example, not explanation. His boundaries aren't up for debate, and his energy isn't currency to be spent on convincing others of his worth. So, when the Sigma male withdraws, it's not a cold shoulder. It's a quiet reset of the emotional playing field. And those who truly understand his value will either adjust their behavior or find the exit. No shouting, no blame, just silence and the message it carries. Number 6, his calm in conflict. His silence under pressure reveals something primal: control. This isn't the kind of control that comes from dominance or manipulation. It's the inner mastery of a man who has tamed his impulses, who chooses calm over chaos. In a world where arguments are often loud and emotions easily spill over, his quiet resolve becomes magnetic. This isn't just a social preference. It's deeply rooted in evolutionary psychology. Studies show that emotional stability is one of the most attractive traits in men, particularly in high-stress situations. From a biological perspective, women are often drawn to partners who demonstrate reliability and emotional regulation, qualities that signal long-term survival potential. When a man remains composed while others react, he communicates more than just confidence. He conveys security, self-possession, and mental strength. It's why the strong, silent type archetype has endured for centuries across cultures. His stillness doesn't mean he's disengaged. It means he's choosing his moment, watching, understanding, and waiting. And in doing so, he becomes unpredictable, intriguing, and quietly powerful. Women often notice how he doesn't need to raise his voice or posture for respect. It's already present in the way he carries himself. His silence isn't empty, it's intentional. It's the difference between reacting and responding, between letting the moment control you or mastering it. That kind of presence cannot be faked. It comes from inner alignment. In that quiet strength lies the power to de-escalate conflict, to disarm aggression, and to command attention without demanding it. He's not trying to win the argument. He's already won by not needing to fight in the first place. And that, to many women, is irresistible, not because he's distant, but because his depth speaks louder than any words ever could. Number 7, his respect for her autonomy. He doesn't try to fix her, possess her, or manage her, and that alone sets him apart from most men. In a world where control is often mistaken for love, the Sigma male's approach is radically different. He gives her space, not as a passive strategy, but as an intentional, powerful act of respect. He doesn't view the woman he's with as a problem to solve or a puzzle to decode. Instead, he sees her as a sovereign being, complete and capable in her own right. This mindset builds a deeper form of trust, the kind that doesn't need constant reassurance or boundary-pushing games. Psychologically, trust grows strongest not from closeness alone, but from the freedom to be oneself within a relationship. And the Sigma understands this instinctively. He knows that trying to mold someone into his idea of perfection only leads to resentment and dependency. So, rather than clinging, hovering, or overcorrecting, he steps back. He observes, he listens, and when she speaks, he hears more than her words. He hears her essence. This dynamic creates a rare type of intimacy, one that's not forced, but forged through mutual respect. Studies in healthy relationship dynamics show that autonomy is just as important as connection. People thrive when they feel free, not micromanaged. The Sigma male gets this on a cellular level. It's not that he doesn't care. It's that he cares enough to not control. Ironically, this detachment doesn't drive women away, it draws them in. She feels seen, not for what she could be if changed, but for who she already is. This kind of presence is magnetic. It's not loud, flashy, or demanding. It's calm, grounded, and unwavering. And in that space he gives her, something profound happens. She relaxes, she stops performing. She starts trusting because she knows she's not being managed, she's being respected, and that makes all the difference. Number 8, his unavailability. He's not easy to reach, not because he's playing hard to get or trying to manipulate emotions, but because he genuinely values his time. For a man like this, his attention is currency, and he doesn't spend it recklessly. Unlike those who flood conversations with constant messages and validation-seeking behavior, he moves in silence, and that silence becomes a loud presence in her mind. It's a psychological principle known as people tend to remember incomplete or interrupted experiences more than completed ones. When a woman can't easily access him, her brain loops around that open tab, wondering why he's different, what he's doing, and why he isn't vying for her attention like everyone else. Instead of chasing her, he gives her space to feel his absence, and that, paradoxically, pulls her closer. His self-discipline sends a subconscious signal. I don't need to impress you. I don't need to explain myself. I'm whole on my own. And that kind of quiet confidence is magnetic. In today's world of instant gratification and non-stop notifications, someone who doesn't respond immediately or who doesn't need to is a rare breed. He forces her to slow down, to reflect, and to question. She begins to compare his silence to the noise around her, and the contrast is profound. While others try to talk their way into her thoughts, he occupies space in her mind by not speaking at all. It's not about being cold, it's about being deliberate. Studies in behavioral psychology even suggest that scarcity increases perceived value. When something is rare or not easily accessible, we instinctively assign it more importance. That's exactly what happens here. His detachment isn't emotional distance, it's emotional mastery. He knows who he is and doesn't seek external validation to reinforce it. So he doesn't rush to reply, doesn't over-explain, and doesn't fear being misunderstood. In doing so, he breaks the rhythm of what she's used to. And that break creates intrigue, attraction, and eventually admiration. His silence becomes a mirror in which she sees her own thoughts more clearly. And often those thoughts are about him. Number 9, his obsession with growth. He doesn't brag about self-improvement, he simply evolves. And that's exactly why women find him so irresistibly magnetic. While many men announce every gym session, quote every self-help guru, or plaster their social media feeds with motivational buzzwords, the Sigma male operates differently. His growth is silent, intentional, almost invisible until you notice how different he's become. He's the type to pick up a new language, master a new skill, or level up in his career without telling a soul. There's something incredibly powerful about quiet transformation. It signals inner strength, discipline, and self-respect. Psychologically, this behavior triggers a concept known as self-determined motivation, where actions are driven by personal values rather than external validation. According to studies in evolutionary psychology, women are wired to subconsciously gravitate toward men who exhibit competence, confidence, and emotional control, traits often found in those who grow in silence. It's not about the flex, it's about the presence. A man who evolves without seeking applause is, in essence, someone who's not trying to prove anything, and that's precisely what makes him stand out. There's no need to advertise greatness when greatness speaks through your actions. This unspoken confidence hints at emotional intelligence and long-term potential, two traits that women, both consciously and unconsciously, find incredibly appealing. It's not the noise of improvement that matters, it's the evidence. She notices how he handles pressure better now, how he listens more, speaks less, and carries himself with calm precision. His evolution isn't broadcast, it's embodied. And in a world that's obsessed with image, a man who chooses substance over spectacle becomes a rare breed. His quiet growth says everything without saying a word, and that silence echoes louder than any boast ever could. Number 10, his purposeful silence. When he's quiet, it's not emptiness, it's calculation. This silence isn't a void, it's a strategy. While the average person may rush to fill the air with chatter, the Sigma male leans into stillness. He listens intently, not to respond, but to understand. In a world where speaking first is often mistaken for leadership, he proves that true power often lies in observation. This trait aligns with psychological studies that show individuals who speak less and listen more are often perceived as more intelligent and trustworthy. The Sigma male isn't trying to impress anyone. He's trying to discern patterns, motives, and meaning beneath the surface. And when he finally does speak, it's never impulsive or for show. Every word is deliberate. His language is not ornamental, it's functional. He speaks to inform, to correct where others are lost in assumptions, or to elevate a conversation, challenging others to think deeper and rise higher. This quality makes his voice rare but impactful. It's why people lean in when he talks, because they know it matters. In many ways, his behavior mirrors that of historical tacticians and leaders like Marcus Aurelius, who wrote more than he spoke, or Miyamoto Musashi, the silent samurai who used words sparingly but struck with truth. His silence isn't awkwardness, it's mastery. And in a noisy world obsessed with attention, the Sigma male remains an enigma, watching, analyzing, and speaking only when necessary. His restraint becomes his superpower, proving that silence isn't a weakness but a weapon sharpened by wisdom and self-control. That kind of clarity, it's irresistible. The Sigma male doesn't follow society's blueprint. He is the blueprint. He walks alone, not out of rebellion, but because he charts a course only he can understand. Ironically, that solitude makes him unforgettable. His silence has a presence louder than noise, drawing attention without effort. While others shout to be noticed, the Sigma is watched in awe simply for existing. Stay curious, be unseen, be unforgettable. Brain boosters.